Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our April Marketing Impossible webinar. I am so thrilled to have you on the call today. I trust it'll be time well spent for you, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a good time because I just love doing these. We have a great turnout today, which really just kind of confirms to me the importance of sharing ideas that encourage us to think outside the box. And let's see, for those of you who don't know me, I'm going to tell you just a little about myself. My name is Mona Hilton, and our company, Genesis Global Technologies, is the author of several tools, including Occupancy Advantage and Developer's Advantage. What we do is we help communities generate new leads through marketing and automate the sales follow-up process to get you to your capacity goals as quickly as possible and to sell out all of your homes. But we'll talk a little bit more about what we do later, and actually you're going to see it in action today. But I'm doing this webinar for a number of reasons. One is I just love sharing ideas, and I'm passionate about marketing. But frankly, also because this is the kind of webinar that I would attend. I love marketing inspiration. I look for it everywhere. I find it in beauty. I find it in music. I find it in motivational pep talks and success stories. That's why I love motivational speakers like Zig Ziglar, who is one of my all-time favorites. He's a classic. And I find that when I'm in that mindset, the ideas, strategies, concepts, they just start to flow kind of like a river, and it becomes really easy to come up with ways to stand out from the crowd. And that's what it's all about. That's what we're trying to do, is stand out from the crowd when it comes to marketing. So here's my goal for today. This is a very informal, casual webinar. I just want to share some ideas with you. But what I want to do more than anything is I want to create an environment of creative thinking, a kind of a little window in your day where you can give yourself permission to think outside the box and open your mind's eyes to ideas that are going to work for you. Now, I always talk about the value of giving yourself permission. I believe there's a lot of power in giving yourself permission to set aside the cares of the day, the really long to-do lists, all the things that you need to take care of, and all the things that you're worried about. Set them aside and give yourself permission to think. It's okay. It's good. In fact, it's funny, just yesterday I was reading an article about Albert Einstein. And yes, he was definitely at genius level. But they say that Albert Einstein did not have the highest IQ in recorded history. What he did have is he had focus, and he gave himself time to think. He was strictly focused on what he was doing, and he thought. He would spend hours thinking. So I may not be at his IQ level, but it does give me a little hope that just by thinking, we can come up with great ideas that are effective, that are useful, that help mankind. Isn't that cool? So today, as we're talking about ideas and applications of those ideas, what I want you to do is allow yourself to think beyond what I'm saying. Even if it's not something that applies specifically to your environment, let your mind wander. Let it expand to spawn off ideas that will work for your challenges and in your environment. Now, in a recent webinar, I said that challenges, are just opportunities in disguise, and I believe that. I say that when life gives you dilemma, you need to make the lemonade. And I know that stuck because I've had several people repeat it back to me. I just love that. And so that's why I named this webinar Marketing Impossible. I stole this quote from our vice president. Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. Isn't that cool? And even Scripture confirms that nothing is impossible. So when you get yourself in that mindset, you open yourself up to ideas that you might not have been open to if you thought that certain things couldn't be done, or we had to do it a certain way because that's how we've always done it. Now, just a little bit about us. I call what we do at Occupancy Advantage and Developers Advantage SMA, Sales and Marketing Automation. Because whether you're in senior living or senior care or residential homes of any kind, our goals are the same. We want to do several things. We want to attract leads. We want to engage our prospects. We want to provide and communicate value. We want to foster communication. And of course, we want to deliver on the lifestyle that we promise. So for those of you who are looking at that Slinky, does it look a little familiar to you? If you've been around me for any length of time or attended some of my webinars in the past, you've seen this Slinky. And we've done a lot of detail about Slinkies, but I love Slinkies. They're really a simple but ingenious design. When you look at a Slinky, all it is loop after loop connected over and over, end to end. And I tell people that your marketing, your sales, your follow-up, your communication should work just like a Slinky, very simply. You do your marketing and you get your leads, whether they're online or offline or referrals, wherever they come from. Your leads then need to go into a system. They need to be assigned to someone. They need to be categorized so you know what's important to those leads, and they need to be tracked. And then you put them on the follow-up, which we call Taskomatics, which we'll talk about later, set it and forget it follow-up. And then you follow up until they move in or until they sign. Otherwise, you repeat that cycle over and over again. I like to say until they buy, cry, or get a restraining order, whichever comes first. I never get tired of that joke. I say it all the time, and I still laugh every time. But it's true. Obviously, you don't want to be obnoxious, but that's the whole idea of marketing. And we're going to reinforce that concept a lot over the course of this webinar. So that brings us to our topic, which is marketing. Now, while marketing has a pretty straightforward goal, just like we talked about earlier, of engaging and attracting and communicating with people, the problem is that the challenges and the tactics and the variables around each marketing challenge is what makes that process more daunting. Speaking of daunting, what is that? Look at it closely. To the naked eye, it might just be a random series of dots. There's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no starting point, there's no ending point. There doesn't appear to be any goal or any aim. And you know what's unfortunate? That's kind of how people see marketing. At first blush, it's just a bunch of random dots. They're unconnected pieces. There are so many choices. There's not a real understanding of how the parts and pieces and dots go together. And at the end of the day, it just leaves you confused and lost and probably spent a lot of money. You're not sure if you spent it wisely or not. But here's the cool part. When you make sense of all those dots and you understand their roles and you put them together in a cohesive plan, you end up with a picture and an end game. In this case, it's a gold star. I know it's silly, but I love silly examples because they drive the point home. So my question is, what marketing parts and pieces do you need and how do you combine them? Now, for those of you who know me personally, especially around the office, our staff here knows that I always talk about starting with the end game in mind. So the first thing, whether we're talking about sales or marketing or just negotiating or making people happy, start with the goal. What is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? What challenges are we faced with? And then let's work our way backwards. How do we accomplish them? What do we need to determine, or what do we need to have, or how do we need to put it together, or what messages do we need to communicate to get to our desired results, which is the goal? So what I'd like to do just in a few moments, and this, again, this is going to be very casual. I'm just going to talk openly with you, just share with you, as if we were sitting across the table, which I wish we were, but for now this is the best we have to work with. But I want to share with you some challenges that we've encountered recently and some of the challenges that I want to share with you today and talk about how we worked backwards to accomplish a goal. Now, here's my disclaimer. My disclaimer is that in order to protect the innocent, which is our clients, for all of the illustrations we've shown you, or almost all of them, we've either visually altered or we've mocked up the examples to be similar to what we did for our clients because we don't want to give away any strategic secrets or anything like that. But also, we have done a lot of campaigns. And we don't have the time today to delve into every single detail of every little campaign. There's just too many of them. There are too many complexities in them. So what I've attempted to do is to slice out some snippets that I thought might be helpful to you or might help you the most and kind of be indicative of idea starters. So I hope that's okay with you. But let's go back to the challenges. Let's talk through some of these challenges. One was to fill a completely empty building, and this empty building had some unique challenges that I'll share with you. Another one is to deal with dormant prospects or referral sources, people who have fallen asleep due to lack of activity, lack of interest, lack of response. There are different scenarios that we'll talk about some of those. A third one is to leverage existing relationships to get new business. We all have relationships, and what we want to do is leverage them smartly. Another challenge was to capture a competitor's resonance. Now, I know that got your attention, but I'll share more about that in detail as we discuss that particular challenge. And then the last one that we want to talk about today is ways to stand out from the competition, because there is competition everywhere, and in case you haven't noticed, it's not going away. It's actually getting stronger and getting more numerous. So how do we differentiate ourselves from the competition? So on first blush, how would you tackle some of these issues? Now, we know the goal is to do this without doing this, right? Nobody likes it when you bombard them. We don't like it. And you know, the thing is, if we talk to professionals, you're going to get a lot of great ideas, kind of mind-numbing. They're good ideas. There's nothing bad with them. They're great ideas. But there's just so much. There's so many different opinions. So I'm a simple person. So let's go back to our simple little formula. What is our challenge? What is our goal? And how do we work our way backward to kind of get to them? So what I'd like to do is kind of take some of these challenges that we talked about earlier, one by one, and kind of dissect them, if you will, unpack them, and look at some ways that we address them in different ways, okay? Sound good? You with me? Cool. All right. Well, the first challenge that we mentioned was a completely empty building, and I told you that that empty building had a unique challenge. That unique challenge is that that building used to be a hospital. So it had some special issues that we had to deal with, if you will. So imagine if you have a completely empty building, it's fully furnished, it's fully staffed, and there's absolutely nobody in it. As you can imagine, all the developers could think about is how they could get as many people as possible in there as quickly as possible. Because as they told us over and over again, every day is costing us money, and we've got to get this building filled. But like I said, the challenge was even bigger because the building used to be a hospital, and it was built in 1927. So it had low ceilings, it had that hospital aura, if you will, to it, and it was a small community, and lots of people had memories of visiting sick or perhaps dying loved ones in this community, and that was just a perception problem that we didn't want to have. So what do? Obviously, empty apartments cost money, and they don't tour very well when there's nobody in there and it feels like a ghost town. So what we wanted to do is get residents, and the biggest challenge that we were faced with is that people are sometimes hesitant to be the first one to commit, certainly a long-term commitment, and certainly without any built-in friends already in the building. Now, there are a lot of tactics that we use to address this issue, and here are some of them, but specific to filling the building. We started thinking about the comparison between a fine, luxury, senior living community and a cruise ship vacation. Who doesn't love a cruise ship vacation? And how attractive is an all-inclusive vacation to a senior? What if you could allow them to experience the good life prior to making a long-term commitment? After you got off your last cruise, most of us it would have been easy to talk us into making a long-term commitment to that kind of a lifestyle where you're pampered and taken care of and you have nothing to worry about except for choosing your next activity, right? So what we came up with is what we called a holiday from housework vacation. Now, this holiday from housework vacation was really an opportunity to enjoy a vacation. So seniors could enjoy a vacation from the daily grind of their housework, their chores, their cooking, their cleaning, all those mundane things, and instead they could try out great meals and they could participate in fun activities and enjoy these great amenities. It was also a chance for them to make friends before they moved in, before they made a commitment, which, of course, as you know, would increase their conversion rates. In other words, how many of them would choose to move in there permanently after they had all these friends. There are also several benefits of the Holiday from Housework program to the developers and to the investors, if you will. And that is that they would get a positive, immediate flurry of activity. It would bring the place to life. It would have vibrancy and just a life that comes with having people in it, enjoying things, watching movies, doing all kinds of fun things. It would also help offset that initial expense of the staffing overhead that they were already paying for. They had to hire the staff. And obviously, the goal is it would result in permanent residence. So what we decided to do, among other things, was we plastered this holiday from housework vacation all over this small town with what we call sticky points. Now, sticky points, if you haven't heard me talk about them before, are the most attractive way to get people to engage and respond to you. They're essentially sticky notes for people. They can be used online, they can be used offline, on your website, your social media, almost any advertising media. We have a client who does TV ads that lead to sticky points. Now, sticky points are simply a way to exchange something that your prospects want. Maybe it's an article or an offer or a video or some valuable information for something that you want. Usually it's their basic information, contact information, and any interests that they have. The other real big advantage of sticky points is a term that's called behavioral marketing. So based on their behavior, what sticky point they stick to, our system categorizes them as prospects, as children, as referral sources, etc., and can begin the process of engaging them with other relevant and personalized messages determined by the type of interest that they express, that they told you about on the sticky point. And you'll say, if you think back to the Slinky, it just enforces that concept. And you're going to see many uses and many applications for sticky points as we talk about them. I just was speaking to someone, showing it to someone earlier today, and he said, wow, that really blows my mind. I don't want to blow your mind, but I'm hoping to get you thinking about some great ideas. Now, the holiday from housework vacation was for a senior living facility. But what if you're a residential developer? How might you apply that same concept to your challenge? Now, if you're a residential developer, how about a fly-and-buy program? Now, it's not a new concept, but it is a very effective way to get people on your site to spend time. And as an added bonus, most of the time, people who respond to a fly-and-buy offer are already interested in the property, so they're more qualified, and they're more likely to purchase when they come on site. So typically, a fly-by works kind of like this. Your prospects, they can reserve some time to stay on your property. They agree to tour the property. If they purchase it during the trip, you pay for their stay, and you contribute usually a certain amount towards their airfare, towards their travel expenses, whatever that is. Now, of course, here's the key. You have to organize the details of their stay to make sure it is unforgettable. It's a memorable moment, as we call it. Fly-bys work especially well for like destination vacations, vacation homes, or destination locations, I should say. Kind of the life at the beach concept. Great place to get people to come on by. Hopefully you're thinking about some ideas and how they might apply to you. The second challenge that we talked about was dormant leads, prospects, and referral sources. You can apply this to anyone who goes dormant, whether they're leads, prospects, referral sources, realtors, you name it. But let's just say that you've got some dormant prospects that you need to re-engage. You haven't talked to them for a while. Maybe they haven't been responding to you. Maybe they're just, not into it. And you need an excuse to excite them, to get them off of center. And so what I'd like to share with you is some snippets, again, from campaigns that we've done to revive leads, prospects, referral sources, realtors, you name it. Now, it's important to remember, as I share those with you, that each one is designed to address a very specific revival need. So you'll have to think again about what your need is. We don't have time to go into all the details, so I'm just hoping to give you a glimpse and get your mind thinking. Now, one challenge that we had to deal with was for senior living, and it was for loved ones who had been identified with early stages of Alzheimer's. So our target audience that we were trying to reach were the children of the aging parents. They were people who we hadn't heard from before, or lately we haven't contacted them sometime. Maybe they weren't quite ready. Maybe we just couldn't get a hold of them after that. How do we engage them? How do we get them to respond to us? So we came up with a quiz challenge. People love self-guided quizzes. If you don't believe me, go to the grocery store and look at any of the women's magazines. People love to score themselves, to rate themselves, to see how they compare with other people like them. And they especially love to do it in the privacy of their own home. So that's what we wanted to do, is create that same environment for them. So here's kind of how it works. We sent out an email, and I'm going to tell you this is not the email we sent to them. This is one we used for ourselves. I couldn't share their email with you, so I'm showing you one we did for ourselves. But we sent an email to the children and the aging parents who had specified Alzheimer's as a concern. And we gave them an offer to click on, start the challenge, take this quiz, see how your loved one is doing. That link, of course, took them to a personalized smart response page. We call it an SRP. It's a smart response page because it's a way for them to respond back to you, but it's smart. It already knows all about them. So in this case, it says, "Hi, Kristen, do you recognize any of these signs?" And there are questions on there. Now, when they answer those questions, they immediately receive a score. And in addition to that, as a bonus, they got some helpful tips for each question, how to deal with the issues. Here's the magic. Simultaneously, those scores that they had were sent to the marketing person, the account executive, the salesperson, who would follow up with a message. "Hi, Kristen, I noticed you took the quiz, and Alzheimer's quiz, and your loved one scored a 70. I have some ideas that I think might help your mom. I would like to offer you a free assessment." And that gives you, the marketing managers, an excuse to reach out to them by phone and by email and to engage them with compassion, which is what it's all about. Obviously, just a little tip I have to mention is that when you call people, you want to start with the quiz scores that were the lowest. So people who need help immediately. You don't want them to wait. And you want to respond very quickly, but we're going to talk about follow-up later on. So that's a great way to engage people and get them off center. Here's another idea. Our challenge was we needed to re-engage realtors. Now, in this case, the building had a brand new owner. But the realtors, they just weren't interested. They'd been out there several years ago. You know, there's just no reason to come back and revisit, no reason to bring their buyers by. They were kind of bored. They had a ho-hum attitude. And we needed to wake them up. We needed to excite them. So what we came up with was an Everybody Dance Now campaign. What we didn't know, what we didn't expect, was that the realtors who received the Everybody Dance video forwarded it to their prospects. And we got way more mileage out of it than we expected. In a way, it went viral. And that was pretty cool. So let me see if I can show you that. Here is the email that went out to them. Just wanted to share a fun, danceable way to remind you of the beauty, the luxury. Click here and take a break and click here. Watch this. When they click there, it takes them to a, you got it, smart response page. And you can see in the circle, it already knows who they are. So it says their name. And there's a big wow factor that they already are known. And you can see this is a video. And if you will be patient with me, I am going to attempt, if technology decides to cooperate, I'm going to attempt to try to show you that video. Bear with me one second. All right, here is a live smart response page, and I'm going to play a bit of that video for you. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it through my headset. Let me see here. What do you think? That song, I can tell you that song grows on you. We started singing it around the office, and I would go to the client and they would be singing it. It's nothing fancy. It was just a fun, lighthearted, people love music. They love to kind of enjoy it. So just a way to scratch the record is what I call it, get them to pay attention to you and come on site. So there was more to that campaign that I'll share with you a little bit later on. But that video went viral, and we really enjoyed it ourselves, too. All right. So let's talk about our re-engagement challenge. This is a little bit different. This was a senior living community, and we had to overcome a financial objection. Now, these prospects had at one time expressed interest in the community, but they had not been able to move forward. They were faced with financial reasons. Maybe they didn't have the money. There were some issues, and we had kind of not been able to follow up with them because we didn't have a solution for them. So here is our challenge. We didn't want to just talk them into this intellectually. They knew that they wanted to move. They just had a problem. They couldn't pay for it. So what we wanted to do was provide them with tangible, practical ways, actual ways that they could use, help them find ways to pay for their retirement. So what we did was what we called the 5 hidden ways to pay for retirement living, opportunity of a lunchtime. Now, obviously it was a seminar, and there are a lot of details that are involved in this seminar that you know all about. But what I want to do is highlight a few unique points for you to kind of take note of. One thing was that we were able to attract only people who are interested but concerned about their finances. So it was a very narrow target market that we were able to attract and bring on site. The second one was we needed an opportunity to bring credible third-party speakers like elder care attorneys, insurance experts, people who really didn't have a vested interest in the community. So they would be objective, but they would bring real, tangible, actual ideas and ways to pay for their retirement. And of course, the most important thing in some respects was that we were able to bring prospects on site. We were able to get them on site, work with them one by one, provide an immediate solution, and be able to close that deal. Because if you can solve the problem, if you can solve the challenge, you get to your goal a lot quicker. So here's kind of how that worked. Let me show you, and this is one we mocked up. It was similar to this, but not quite. We sent out postcards. Now these postcards were personalized. They sometimes call it variable data imprinting. I call it crash imprinting sometimes. And we sent them out to all the prospects, all the leads, and to the family members, anyone who was involved in the financial decision-making process. The back of the card, again, was personalized, in this case, Todd Andrew. Join us for a seminar, 5 hidden ways to pay for retirement living. Go to this website, use this promo code, and you can download complimentary tickets to this seminar. So what was cool about that is that when they go to that website and they put in that promo code was actually their ID in Occupancy Advantage. So when they put it in, it knew exactly who they were. It was personalized. Again, thanks for stopping by, Todd Andrew. And there's all the information about Todd Andrew. If we didn't have his email address, he could put it in there for us. And there was all the information, the place to download the vouchers. There was a chance to win a free Nook, is what we did in that case. And, of course, all the full seminar details. And there was also a link for an offer to forward it to a friend. So it said if you're not Todd Andrew, click here, and that would take you to an empty Smart Response page that they could fill out. And, of course, that populated directly into Occupancy Advantage and provided more leads. And it bears mentioning here, because I hope I remember to say it a few times, is that whenever you do these postcard campaigns, in addition to that link, which is powerful, and usually family members have access to the Internet, but also what you want to do is also provide a phone number so that if they don't have access to the Internet, you provide them another way to register for your seminar or whatever it is that you're offering them. So that was our retirement planning seminar. Worked extremely well and got a great turnout and a great response. So we're real pleased with that. All right, let's talk about another challenge. The next challenge on our list was how to leverage existing relationships to get new business. Excuse me. So in this particular situation, what we were up against is senior living. In this case, it wasn't. It was senior services, actually. It was private duty services. They had an existing client base that they had served for years, but they recognized that the clients were not being tapped as they would like. They were not getting the special treatment to the clients. They just didn't have the time or the follow-up. And as a result, their client information had become outdated. They knew they didn't have email addresses. And what they recognized is that they were not getting referrals from their existing clients. And they knew that that wasn't right. So what they wanted to do was make the client feel special. We wanted to create some goodwill with the existing clients. We wanted to update that client information, capture email addresses. In many cases, we didn't have it. And we wanted to stimulate referrals. We wanted to get them to give us referrals. So, again, it was for services. They're private duty. They're really kind of non-medical. So we put together what we call the Friends and Family campaign. Now, again, it's a postcard that we sent out. This is kind of the front of it. And the back of it was, again, personalized or crash imprinted for each recipient. So the way this program worked is they would go to the website. They would be entered to win. I think we gave, they entered to win a free Nook. They were told that if they referred their friends and family, they would receive a $50 gift card, and then whoever they referred would get $85 worth of services for free just by registering. So the postcard went out to the clients, or to the existing clients and their family members. Here's kind of how it looked. The postcard goes out with the promo code. They go to that sticky point or smart response page, put in their information. We were able to capture their emails. They registered for a Nook. They referred their friends and family. It also had a place where they could download what we called a friends and family certificate that they could hand out to friends and families if they didn't want to do it any other way. We also did a little bit of special programming on that smart response page so that, let's just say I referred someone, I could go in, put in who I was referring and their email address if I had it, and the system would send them an email from me telling them how they could get these $85 worth of free services, which is about, I think it was about 4 hours worth of free services. So it was very effective. Again, just a way to get people's attention and to do something different and to make people feel special. And you probably are seeing a pattern developing here, right? There's definitely a system where you engage them, you touch them, you communicate with them with relevant information, and just keep that process going like a slinky. All right, let's talk about another challenge. One is how to reach competitors' residents. Now, this one bears just a little bit of explaining. Let me explain this to you a little bit. In this situation, our client had a local competitor in a very niche market, and this competitor of theirs was losing their license, their state license, for a certain type of service. So they were going to be telling some of their residents, we're sorry, we can't help you any longer. You'll have to go someplace else. Now, you can imagine how well that goes over with seniors. They don't necessarily love change, and they don't like to be caught off guard. So the challenge was how to reach their soon-to-be homeless, if you will, residents and overcome all the barriers that seniors would be faced with when they got this news. Now, the seniors were faced with the shocking news. They were going to be forced to move. They really were not going to get much warning. They had no place to go, and in many cases, they had no way of moving. So you can imagine their fears, the cost of moving, how am I going to do this, how am I going to pay for this, where do I go? And what we wanted to do was create a process for them that was natural, that was easy and painless, and completely take care of their move for them, all the way down to arranging their move and paying for the move. So they had to do nothing. All they had to do was agree to the move. Now, when we started looking into this, here's what we found out. We found out that the residents and the family members were very concentrated. I told you it was a niche market, in 2 zip codes, residential zip codes, that were right around that competitor's area. We did not want to spray and pray with our marketing, as we call it. So we didn't want to run a bunch of ads that were going to reach people in other markets that we weren't after. We wanted to be very strategic in reaching them. So what we did is we developed a direct mail postcard campaign, and we specifically targeted those 2 residential zip codes. It's called Every Door Direct Mail, I think is what it's called. And we reached those 2 zip codes right around that competitor's facilities. And at the end of the day, it only cost 28 cents per mailing to have the mailing developed, to have it printed, and to have it mailed. So it was extremely cost-effective and targeted. Now, I will tell you that this campaign is currently underway even as we speak. So I'll have to give you an update when it's completed as to what the success was for it. But I'm expecting it to be really good because we're reaching people as soon as they need us and address all the issues, the barriers that they're faced with. Pretty cool, huh? All right. We're getting down to the wire if you're still with me. I want to share one of the last challenges, and that is how to stand out in crowded competition. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir. We know that their competitors are popping up everywhere. Marketing is fierce. Money is being spent like crazy. Residents, senior residents, residential residents have lots of options, and we have some goals that we need to meet. We need to stand out in a crowded market. We want to market smart. Again, we don't want to spray and pray because that's a waste of money. We need to be strategic. We need to find ways that make us look different, that we stand out from all the messages and all the things that everybody else is doing. It's good to scratch the record. It's good to look different. And we want to maximize referral relationships. Now, I've always preached that I believe referral relationships are the most underutilized resource that we have. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can leverage those relationships. I mean, what a great way. We're providing them a service, and they're providing us a service. So here are some ideas. I'm going to kind of share a little bit more detail on a few of these. Some ideas for how to stand out in a crowded marketplace. One is to leverage those existing relationships. I'm going to show you a reward program. I'm going to show you a VIP program. We want to look different. We want to talk a little bit about QR codes and videos and different ways that we can stand out in a crowded marketplace. So the first one is a rewards program. Now, this client, again, had a community, had a brand new owner, and we needed to make the realtors, these are the realtors who would bring people by to show the property, we needed to make them feel special. We needed to encourage them, excite them, and we wanted to reward them for bringing in people to tour the property and show the property. So what we did is we started off with a very personalized message and an invitation for the brand new owner. And what we did is create a very low barrier to register for free gifts, for fun gifts, and escalating awards just for showing the property. You show the property, you get a gift. It's that simple. And as a bonus to the developer, what it did is it created a bunch of brand new prospects for the community and opened the door for the developer to market to these prospects directly. At the end of the campaign, it culminated in a very fun-loving rewards open house, kind of like a reward ceremony and an open house combined. So it was very effective. And again, we're just rewarding them for doing the activities that we want. Just like when you train your children, you reward the activities you want. We wanted to reward them for bringing people by. That's our goal. Okay, so maybe you're not a residential developer. Maybe you're senior living. Well, you know what? We can apply that same principle to senior living communities. We developed what we call a VIP program. This VIP is a very important person program designed to make the senior referral sources, our discharge managers, our clergy, etc., feel like special VIPs because oftentimes they're neglected. They just don't get the attention that they deserve, but they're very valuable. So being a part of the VIP program meant that you would get special treatment, meant that you would get access to valuable information, and included them in special follow-up program that ensured that they got touched on a regular basis in a good way. So here are some of the components that went into the VIP program. Again, we have a much longer explanation of the VIP program. If you want it, send me a chat, let me know in some way, and I'll make sure that you get it. But real quickly, here are the components. It started off over here with a branded logo, and I'll show you an example of one. The branded logo is a visual design. It would always be associated with the VIP program. Any time it appeared, you know what it was part of. Collateral materials, this could be brochures or referral cards or lead cards or online smart response pages that referral sources could use to pass out to get leads. Here's a quick referral snapshot. Another component would be a monthly update. Now this would be a VIP newsletter that only VIPs would get. It was exclusive. That would include some of the latest insider information for the VIPs. It could be printed and handed out when we met with them in person, but it could also be emailed on a monthly basis to each person in the VIP program. A referral follow-up task-o-matic, which we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, that once a VIP expressed interest in being part of the program, they would be put on a consistent follow-up to make sure that they were touched and nurture that relationship. There was a revival postcard campaign just to excite people and get people to sign up for the VIP program and introduce it. And then there was a memorable moment gift. The memorable moment gift is something that sits on their desk as a constant reminder of your community, of your company. You know, when you can stay in front of them, they're going to refer who they're thinking about. And any way that you can stay in front of them, you can leave a nice impression with them. They look at it, they go, oh yeah, I just saw so-and-so, and they really need that kind of service or that kind of community. So all of these work together kind of in tandem, multi-pronged approach to create this VIP partner program and reinforce that relationship. And it works. I'll tell you, I could tell you story after story of how well it works. All right, but you know what? There are other ways, and you can, I'm sure, think of lots on your own, but just in the interest of time, we'll hit a few. Other ways to stand out from your competition. One of those is by incorporating QR codes. Now, I can hear you sigh right now because maybe you're not convinced that many people actually go to the trouble of scanning them. And, you know, I think you'd be surprised if you knew the actual statistics, but that's not the point. Just having a QR code actually sets you apart from your competition. Even if they don't scan it, it indicates that you're forward-thinking, and I'll bet you most of your competition isn't using QR codes, so that visually sets you apart. Now, here are some examples we've done. You can incorporate a QR code almost anywhere on almost anything. I've seen them everywhere. You can put them on your postcards that you mail out that take your prospects directly to their sticky point. You can put it on your property signs. We have a client who is building a new community, and they have it on their coming soon sign. So they can scan it, go directly to the website, capture their information to learn more, get the latest information about the upcoming community, all those kinds of things just by scanning it. Very cool. Also, one of my favorites is videos. Videos, that's one of the hottest things going. People are much more inclined to watch a video than they are to sit down and read an article, especially if those videos are interesting or they're fun or they have music. Now, you could use videos for almost everything, from testimonials, which if you logged on early and you saw some of our statistics at the beginning, we know that references from friends and family trumps any other type of marketing. So any time that you can incorporate references, testimonial videos, they're powerful and they work really well. You can do video blogs or video letters from your executive director. I've talked about this before, but perhaps your chef making a recipe or a viral video. That's an awesome way to leave your competition in the dust. Anytime you can make it fun and exciting, we actually have a client who does a very popular golf tips video series. So they send out these golf tips by video, and they're fun, they're popular, people watch them, and talk about standing out from your competition. When have you seen that before? So again, they're just ideas. Now, if you combine the concept of a QR code or a video link with a sticky point concept, now you can make real magic happen. Now, we have a client who uses QR codes. They're tied to sticky points for their properties. Now, what they do is they do inspections. So they track the inspections, they document them, and then based on that sticky point, it triggers activities based on the results of the inspections, and you get the idea. If you just think about it for a moment, the options are really endless. There's so much that you can do. Now, what you might have noticed is that there is a common factor in many of these campaigns. You got it. It's using the Internet. Now, it used to be that people would stop me and say, you know, Mona, our prospects aren't really using the Internet. I would beg to differ. That is changing so rapidly, we actually can't keep track of those statistics. The last one that I know, and I know it's actually higher than this, is that 87% of people who contact you have done some research over the Internet or social media on your community. And that number is just getting higher and higher, regardless of whether they're prospects or family members. And here's another thing that you should know. Statistically, if you contact your web leads within 5 minutes of them reaching out to you, you're 100 times, not 100%, 100 times more likely to reach them, engage them, and sell to them than if you wait just 30 minutes. Now that makes perfect sense, right? So they're still sitting in front of their computer. They remember why they contacted you. It's still hot on their mind. Your competition certainly hasn't touched base with them that quickly. So most people have a policy of when we get a lead, it's emailed to someone within 30 minutes, and the expectation is that you're going to call them within an hour or two. Well, as you can tell, it just isn't going to cut it any longer. We've got to find better ways to do that. We've got to find better ways to follow up, and we've got to take the manual process out of it if we're going to be effective. So speaking of follow-up, I would be doing you a real disservice if I didn't at least address follow-up, because we know that we're putting a lot of money and energy and effort into marketing campaigns. And what's the point of engaging these people and generating leads if we're not following up on them? Especially when you consider that 65% of managers cite follow-up as their #1 business failure. It's not patient care. It's not customer service. It's follow-up. And according to the Association of Sales Executives, you ready for this? 81% of all sales happen on or after the 5th contact. So if you're doing just 1 or 2 follow-ups, you don't even want to think about how much you're losing out on. And I always say the scariest statistic is the one you don't know. Now, of course, it wouldn't be right to present you with a problem without also presenting you with a solution. And we did an entire webinar just on the topic of follow-up. It was called Stop the #1 Leak in Your Sales Process. And in it, we went into great detail on follow-up, how to do it, when to do it, what to say, and how to systemize your follow-up. And again, if you'd like a copy of that webinar, just send me a chat. I'll make sure and get it to you, or respond to our follow-up to this webinar. But in the interest of time, let me just kind of briefly go over the concept with you. It's our solution to bulletproof set and forget your follow-up. So if you've ever heard of Ronco's Set and Forget It Rotisserie, Vegematic, or Slice-O-Matic, you'll appreciate our Task-O-Matic. And yes, I know it's a play on words on the Set It and Forget It concept, but I promise you'll never forget it. Now, what Task-O-Matics do is they allow you to predefine, lay out, and automate every step of the follow-up process for all the different scenarios you encounter, from your web leads to your walk-ins, even to your post-move-in. So let me just kind of go over this one briefly to give you an idea of how they work. Let's just say, for the sake of, just for illustration, that this is an A prospect follow-up. We have identified our best practices for how we want an A prospect to be followed up with. On day 1, we want Jane Doe to send out a handwritten thank you note. On day 2, we want the salesperson or the marketing person to make a thank you call. And on that call, we want them to ask certain discovery questions. What prompted you to contact us? What's most important to you? What are you looking for? Those kinds of questions. And then on day 3, we want the executive director or some manager to send out a package of information, a thank you package. And then on day 7, we want to send out a value proposition about what a great bargain it is to live here versus other options that are available to them. And that goes out by email. And then we have a call, and then we have a letter that's testimonials and references. You get the idea. And the way that this works is when you encounter an A prospect in this illustration, you launch them on an A prospect Task-O-Matic, and in our world, Occupancy Advantage or Developer's Advantage takes over for you. On the right day and the right time, it puts the right activity or action in the right person's inbox, whoever it's assigned to. But it goes further than that. When they're supposed to make a call, they go to make that call, it pops up with that discovery guide, the questions, the script, whatever it is that you want them to ask at that stage in the process. And then when they complete that, it fires the next action on the next day and time on that person's Task-O-Matic for whoever it's assigned to. Now, if it's an email or a letter, that's already pre-queued up with a template, a value proposition email. It pops up. It's already personalized. It's got the recipient information in there. It's got it all queued up. All they've got to do is personalize it. Talk about the weather, talk about their dog Mimi, whatever they said was important to it. But the bulk of the email is already there. It's predefined. It's grammatically correct. It's spell-checked, all that. So they hit complete. If it's an email, it sends it out. If it's a letter, it prints it to their default printer. We were joking the other day, we haven't figured out how to lick envelopes yet using the system. But I told the programmers, you got to work on that. You got to work on that. So you can see how this systemizes and bulletproofs all your follow-up, whether they come in from the website and immediately starts that, or whether they walk through the door. Pretty cool, huh? Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground today, but are your juices flowing just a little bit, hopefully? Hopefully you were able to extrapolate some ideas from examples that I use. And remember to keep an open mind as you apply these concepts to your situation. Because whether you're doing senior living or residential living, sometimes with just a little twist on an idea or a little tweak, you can create the perfect solution for your own challenge. So as you can tell, I absolutely love this stuff. Marketing was my first passion. Then came technology, especially when I figured out how it could supercharge my first passion of marketing. Now, obviously, all these ideas were powered by Occupancy Advantage or Developer's Advantage. That's the tool that we built to generate these leads, to automate the follow-up all the way to closing the sale, and, if you will, close that slinky loop, if you will. And they incorporate the latest in the technology to drive that slinky process that we talked about earlier you're looking at. But, you know, what I found out is sometimes it just really helps to brainstorm ideas with someone about specific challenges and, like I said, work your way backwards from your goal to your challenge to what you're trying to accomplish. So what I'd like to do is offer myself to do some brainstorming with you. I'd do a session with you if you'd like. I'd be happy to do a one-on-one session with as many of you as I can. If you're interested in doing that, just send me a chat or respond to our follow-up with maybe the topic or the challenge that you'd like to brainstorm. And what we'll do is we'll set up a time. I'm going to be traveling next week, most of next week, but we can do it before or after that. And we'll roll up our sleeves and we'll tackle that challenge. We'll work our way backwards. I'd love to get to know you personally, for those of you who I don't already know. And I'd love to help you work on specific challenges. I really enjoy that. And of course, if you would like to learn more about Occupancy Advantage or Developer's Advantage, I'd love to take you on a tour of that as well. So, thanks so much for hanging out with me this afternoon. I really enjoyed it. I hope you've got some great ideas. I wish you the very best of marketing success, and I look forward to getting to know you personally, each of you. Thank you so much, and have a great afternoon.